The next speaker is Dr. Alicia Phillips from France. Please, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Please allow me to share my screen. Just give me a moment.
Yes,
can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see.
Great. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you to the organizers for once again organizing a brilliant conference. It is a pleasure to be presenting, though not in person today. I also had plans to attend in person, but it became impossible at the very, very last moment. My name is Alicia Phillips, and today I will be presenting on navigating a new justice framework for cities research for the benefit of current and future generations. So just some quick facts about me. I am originally from the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, the West Indies, where I qualified as a lawyer. I am currently a Ph.D. researcher at the University of Po and Pays-le-Dor and CNRS in France. I am one of the associate editors for the journal Renewable and Sustainable Energy Reviews and a member of the climate research platform Just Transition Working Group at the University of Oxford. I'm also a visiting lecturer at the Karoli Gaspar Reformed University in Hungary, and I annually co-organize a series of international early career conferences geared towards networking and improving interdisciplinary research amongst the early career community. And these are some of the institutions and organizations I've worked with to date. So just quickly, in terms of an outline of the presentation, I'm going to situate the research and say why it's going to be focused on cities. I'll provide the aims of the research, give a little background into the urban climate nexus, then introduce justice into the discussion, where justice is a generational journey, then quickly point out some of the impacts on current and future generations in terms of climate change, then present systems-based compendium, and then conclude and give you future pathways. So in terms of situating the research and why, this piece of research builds on some research I conducted alongside Professor Heffron in 2024, and it's still very relevant today. And if you are interested in reading that piece of research that's still quite relevant today, that is a snapshot of the article on the screen. So the focus on cities is still relevant, as cities are still high contributors for global GHG emissions, contributing 67 to 72%, and are also victims of climate change. So it's very important for cities today to manage these risks and future-proof themselves, especially in light of Sustainable Development Goal 11, which talks about sustainable cities and communities. So it's relevant for cities to lead the global response. In terms of the aims of the research, for me, there are three: to explore the relationship between cities and climate change. So the intention is to ideally look at 16 cities, and it's still quite early, so that may change. New York, Montreal, London, Sao Paulo, Bogota, Lagos, Johannesburg, Singapore, Manila, Mumbai, Valencia, Bordeaux, Melbourne, Shanghai, Jakarta, and Abu Dhabi. And we'll be using a mixed method of research style, so it's going to be a mix of qualitative and quantitative research. And then the second aim would be to illustrate how urban research and policies are evolving to address present and future challenges and consequences. And then the last aim would be to provide a systems-based compendium which cities can implement or follow to safeguard their societies and build resilience now and into the future. So when we talk about the urban climate nexus, we're looking at two things. We're looking at the fact that cities are drivers of climate change, and then they're also victims of climate change. When we speak about cities being the drivers of climate change, we're going back to what I mentioned before. Urban areas are responsible for generating 67 to 72% of global GHG emissions, and its main contributors are energy consumption from buildings and transportation, so it's very energy intensive. The fact that industrial processes are located in concentrated metropolitan zones. And then the last one is linked to urban expansion. So it talks about the fact that land use changes are changing in terms of building cities and expanding them. When we're looking at cities as victims of climate change, it's based on the risks that they face based on climate change. So it's linked to the sea level rise that's threatening coastal megacities like Jakarta and New York, for instance. The fact that water scarcity and flooding, especially in rapidly growing cities with inadequate drainage, has become a problem. which also leads us to public health impacts in terms of vector-borne diseases or even air pollution from all of the transport. So ideally, these challenges disproportionately affect marginalized populations and highlight the deep inequalities and climate vulnerabilities. When we introduce justice into the discussion, justice is a generational journey. And through all of the justice work we do as researchers, we recognize our interconnections with the past, the present, and the future. So we're looking at the fact that justice is intra-generational, so it's for present generations, and intergenerational, so it's for past and future generations. And when we're looking at justice in terms of intergeneration and intragenerational, it refers to the ethical obligation that one generation has towards both the preceding and the succeeding generations, particularly as it relates to environment and societal welfare. So just to quickly touch on some of the impacts before I present the compendium. Some of the impacts we know about are rising temperatures currently, so cities are hotter than surrounding rural areas due to concrete, asphalt, and in some cases limited greenery. Heat waves cause higher rates of heat-related illness and death. And as you can see, the newspaper article from September 2025 on the screen states that 2 in 3 heat deaths are happening in Europe, and it's because it's too hot. In terms of future impacts, we see cooling costs could rise and increase inequality as poorer residents struggle to afford air conditioning. So public health systems will face greater stress from heat-related illnesses. And we see one example there, India, some of the women are actually painting the roofs of their home white so that it becomes cooler. A second impact will be flooding and sea level rise. And currently, coastal cities have already faced frequent flooding during high tides and storms, and heavy rainfall overwhelms drainage systems. Future impacts, rising sea levels could permanently inundate parts of low-lying cities like Miami, Jakarta, for instance. And when we talk about Jakarta, we see that Jakarta, Indonesians are actually relocating Jakarta, their capital city, and then moving the capital to Nusantara. And this is because of rising sea levels. But it's with the aim to build a smart and sustainable forest city with the help of China. Then if we talk about the fact that insurance costs will increase or become unavailable in some high-risk zones, we see some important developments in Italy, where Italy now has a new mandatory natural catastrophe insurance, and that came about in January 2025. Then extreme weather and infrastructure stress. So currently, stronger storms and droughts damage infrastructure, disrupt transport and power supplies. Future impacts would be more frequent and extreme weather, and it requires cities to rebuild or redesign resilient infrastructure. And when we're talking about resilient infrastructure, we can look at Singapore, where sea level rise is something that is threatening them because they're low-lying. But they are enhancing flood resistance by, firstly, as you can see on the screen, source pathway receptor approach, and that deals with their drainage system. And then in terms of staying cool during heat waves, we look at how they are constructing their buildings. Then finally, in terms of the economy and livelihood, the current impacts, climate disasters disrupt economies, tourism, and employment. And we see an example of change in labor markets and disruption of economy in Bordeaux, for instance, where the biggest urban area in the region, Nouvelle-Aquitaine, and it's a wine industry, and it plays a pivotal role in the global wine economy. It brings 7.6 billion euros in exports and employs over 500,000 people. And Bordeaux is actually suffering from hailstorms, heat waves, and drought, and it's impacting grape varieties. So they're looking into soil management, vineyard layouts, and even crop insurance. In terms of presenting the systems-based compendium, and I'm almost finished, this compendium is based on a UN Habitat reading. And you can see the proposal is that cities can adopt this and track and safeguard their societies and build resilience now and into the future, so they can ensure adaptation measures are happening, focus on blue-green infrastructure, look at climate risk mapping, circular economy strategies, nature-based climate solutions, look at their transport, provide technological solutions, and also probably even X-Minute City vision, which talks about it's an urban planning concept where daily life is reachable with a shorter set time by walking or cycling. So it's all about sustainability in mind. But here in particular, we want to focus on justice. And we're saying that once justice is achieved, when we look at justice, we're thinking about energy justice. It's the fact that it would bring cities closer to building resilience. And a sustainable city must be just. So climate policies that neglect equity can't reinforce societal divides, and equity is key to shared urban resilience. So just to conclude, while the compendium from A to Z is very, very large, it reminds us that resilience is complex, and but cities can thrive, and resilience is something we can all take part in. But placing justice at the center of developmental strategies at each of the levels I mentioned will only bring strong and fair, adaptable cities. So today, while we know that cities are adopting green infrastructure, implementing climate resilient design, renewable energy, efficient transport systems, equitable adaptation policies to protect vulnerable populations, more is needed. And that is where the compendium comes into play. Of course, if anyone is interested in participating in this piece of research, it's quite new. So please get in touch. And if you're interested in reading more about new engagement strategies for energy justice, please contact me and I'll share this text with you. And just to say that coming soon in December 2025, early career researchers also have a second edited collection coming about, and it's based on global perspectives on the circular economy in the just transition. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Phillips. Thank you for your time discipline.